All right, part 3. This is the last section here. This is the GT end of year processes. So Catherine and everybody, I hope this will answer your question. So dates to know. So now and from May the 31st, you're going to have time to do the data and record cleanup and correction. And then all reports, there'll be 3 reports that are due. Those will be due June the 1st. So there'll be a summative evaluation and a validation of records, and also there's another one that's not listed there. I need to fix that. June 31st will be the last day to enter GT records that will count for data on the school report card. So just a note, you can enter records after June the 31st, but if you want any of those records where you've identified kids this year and for our data to be, correct, then they need to be entered before July 1st, because that's when Data Enterprise, that's when they pull that information for the report card. But you can enter, records after that. Okay. So here are the 3 reports to complete for the end of year processes. There'll be student groups for the school report card validation. There'll be a validation of GT records report. There'll be the GT Summative Evaluation. And again, all reports are due June the 1st, and they will be completed as Google Forms, and links will be sent through email to GT coordinators and also posted on the GT Resources webpage next week. These are the permissions that you need to complete the end of year processes. So you'll need the participation tool. The enrollment tab is helpful. State published ad hocs. I know that many of you have got district ad hocs, but you really need to make sure you've got rights to the state published ones. I've given on the next slide here, I'll show you what that looks like. And just remember, you may need to work with your cases contact because some districts are kind of cautious about giving rights to everything that I've talked about. So getting started with data correction. So once you get all the rights that you need, and process has been worked out with the cases coordinator, because you may need to schedule some time with them, then you can begin record cleanup, right? So there are several different things to do for record cleanup, and I've given you the screenshots here. Of course, you're going to need to log into Infinite Campus. You'll need to go to the state published ad hocs in Infinite Campus. These are the ad hocs that you're going to need filters for. So there's the invalid start date. There's also validation roster for state testing. There's invalid general intellectual ability, invalid gifted category, invalid primary talent pool, invalid specific academic aptitude, and the student G&T student list. So those are good. Those are the ones that you need access to. And if you're missing some filters, remember, work with your cases contact to get those. So let's start with record cleanup for the general intellectual abilities records. So you're going to go and you're going to select the student gifted and talented invalid general intellectual ability filter. You want to make sure that all the settings are clicked as the arrows are indicated here, right? And then you're going to click export. After you click export, a spreadsheet is going to generate with any students in the district that have an invalid general intellectual ability entry, right? And so students marked as GIA must have one of the following criteria indicated by the red arrows below in order to be a valid entry. So they need to either have, a checklist of inventories, underachieving or disadvantaged, if you don't have the 9th stay 9 clicked, or of course you're going to click the 9th stay 9, or you're going to click special considerations. In order for those students to not show up on that list, those are the things that have to be checked. That's what the ad hoc's looking for, to make sure that 9th stay 9 has been checked. If the 9th stay 9 hasn't been checked, then special considerations should have been checked. All right. So for each student on the spreadsheet, you're going to search for that student. You're going to find their record in Infinite Campus. You're going to go down and look at the evidences on that record to see what's missing. Why did that student get pulled on that report? You'll need to go and look in the folder for that student to look at their evidences if you're not sure, what's missing. Once you find that information, say it was, something about the student having special considerations, then you'll note that um, on the record, the IC record. Just remember, if evidences aren't available to determine the student's current placement, that student might have been a transfer student. So contact the GT coordinator that was where the student was previously and request that information. If that district doesn't have that information, then please contact me. We'll need to work together to resolve that issue. All right, completing the GI Invalid Report. So if the assessment's not offered on the drop-down menu, contact me to let me know that. I know we've got a couple that we need to add. I'm working with Infinite Campus to do that, but you could also select other. But if you've got some new ones that come up, rather than having other, I would much rather have the appropriate assessment on the menu. So if you'll email me any of those that you have wondering about, let me know. Then once all the boxes are checked and everything's correct, click Save. Go through all the other records that show up on that report. Hopefully there won't be very many. And then once you've cleaned everything up, generate the report again to make sure there aren't any errors on that report. The same thing is going to happen for our students that are in specific academic aptitude. It's the same process, but you're going to collect a different ad hoc. Any student that's on that error list, remember it's looking for checklist of inventories, it's looking for the night stay on, it's looking for special considerations. Those students that are on that list, for some reason, that has not been checked on their record, and that needs to be resolved. So again, you want to go look at that student's record. Here are the different codes that will be listed on that error, because you may have students that are in language arts, math, science, and social studies. And remember again, if you can't find that information in the student's folder, to contact, if that student was a transfer student, to contact the previous district and request documentation. If they don't have documentation, then contact me. Or let's say that for some reason the student was, identified in your district, but you don't have documentation. Again, please contact me because we will need to resolve that. Troubleshooting the invalid SSA report. Again, if you don't see the necessary assessment on the drop-down menu, you can select other, but please also contact me to check to make sure that that's, that assessment meets the criteria. And once all the boxes have been checked, click Saved. Please run that report again to make sure that there are no errors on that report. Record cleanup for invalid GT category. Okay. So again, you're going to be looking for that particular ad hoc student G&T invalid gifted category. You select the current year and all the other different things that you see there that are noted with the red arrows. So after you click export, a spreadsheet's going to generate any students for the district that didn't have that have an invalid gifted category. I don't think this happens very much. This used to happen a long time ago, but in order for a formally identified GT student to have a GT category, they need to be in grades 4 through 12. And so the students that are on this particular report, they're in grades kindergarten through 3rd grade. They should be in primary talent pool. They shouldn't have a formal identification like SSA for math or leadership. Okay, so in order to correct these records, the students, you need to change that record to primary talent pool. Ensure the primary talent pool has the appropriate end date. Remember, you can go out and future end date students so that you don't have to touch that record again. And then once it's been completed, you will, once you've done those 3 different reports or that corrected all that information, then you can complete the student groups for the school report card validation report. And that will be a Google form that I will email and also post to the GT Resources webpage. All right, record cleanup for invalid GT category. I can't talk this morning. So again, you're going to select the student G&T invalid gifted category filter. select the current year and the other things that are marked on there. Oh, this is the same thing. I'm sorry, you guys. I want to keep on going. I've made a mistake and have done this twice. All right, moving on. Indating primary talent pool students. All right, so students who are in primary talent pool, kindergarten through third grade, you're going to generate a list of all your currently identified PTP kids. So you can either do that by running the Q&A Gifted and Talented report, or as I stated before, there's an ad hoc that runs a list of all the students. You can filter for that information. If you're not sure how to filter for just your K through 3 students, get with your cases contact. They can help you with that for filtering for your primary talent pool students. You want to make sure that all of your primary talent pool students have an end date, for third grade, either an anticipated end date for third grade. And when you are doing that end date and you're not sure when school is going to end, please use 6/30 and then calculate out to what the year that student will exit third grade. And XXXX here on the PowerPoint means the school year date. And just to expedite this process, whenever you enter primary talent pool students into Infinite Campus, also put that future end date on there. That will really help you in the future, and you won't have very many students that you have to go back and fix these records. All right, G&T Invalid Primary Talent Pool Ad Hoc Report. So this report will list all the students who are too old to be in primary talent pool, and so that's something that you need to fix as well. Usually what that means is they don't have an end date, but run that report, look to see if you've got kids that are in 5th through 12th grade. Using the SSIDs on the report, find the student's record, end date the PTP record, and again, if you're not sure when school ended, just calculate back to third grade for that kiddo and put in that 6/30 and the date of the school year for that kid. When all the students on the list have been corrected, generate the list again to make sure there aren't any kids that are too old to be in primary talent pool. All right, moving on to validation of student records. So we have to make sure that the records that are out in the district are the same as they are at the state. And so this is a process that we go through to make sure that our information is correct for the school report card and also just for the validation of data in general. So before completing the validation of GT records, review the form. And I would say to review all the forms that I send you, because once you start a Google form, it doesn't save it and let you come back. And so I'll also in the email, I'll send a copy of these where I've saved them so that you can look at them and that you can answer them before you put your actual information into the form. I think that will be helpful. So but this form is going to request state and local data for each category. And so before you can complete this, you're going to need to compare your local data to your state data. And so you want to follow the directions on the next couple of slides. All right, so you want to make sure that you've got permissions to the data integrity tools in Infinite Campus. Those are underneath I can't remember, it's the left tab there. And in order to ensure all the data is correct for the program, you've got to review and validate this information is correct. And if there are any missing students on the local data set, the students' records have got to be located and added or corrected. And then once the data is correct, then the GT coordinator will complete the validation of GT records report using the link to the Google form. So I've got the steps here for validation. Of course, you're going to log into Infinite Campus. You're going to scroll down. You're going to look for those data integrity tools. Underneath index, you're going to select data validation. Then you're going to select the reports. You're going to look for the definition group extract. There'll be 2 extracts, a state set and a local set. The local set is the district's data set. Please note that the state data set does not generate automatically. Sometimes it may take a little while for that to import, and you'll see that it's in a queue. The status there will be queued, and then you'll be notified when you've got that information ready. Then once you've got that data set, then you want to select the boxes and things that you see here in the screenshot. Gifted and talented group, report format is CBS or CSV, the state data set, and then after making the selections, you want to click the generate the report. All right, so please note the state data set again, it's not going to be generated immediately. And once you do get that data set, though, you want to save it to a file on your computer somewhere. All right, when the state set's ready, it'll say completed and you can get the report. So you'll want to save that to a file on your computer somewhere because you're going to compare that file with the local file. And it's going to give you all the students that are currently identified for gifted and talented services in the state. All right, generating the local data set. So again, you want to select these from the drop-down boxes, gifted and talented group, report format CSV, local data set. After making these selections, click generate the report. And this one usually will generate pretty quickly depending on how many students are in your gifted program. So once you've generated the local data set, you should save it and give it a title. This will give you a list of all the students in the district set. So once you've generated both sets, you're going to examine the data sets to ensure a direct match. And you may want to get your cases contact may be able to help you with that, or they may know someone that can help you if you have a large number of students. There are really some really good tools and Microsoft Excel that they can use to help you compare data sets if you have a lot of students. So you want to make sure that you've got the same number of records on each spreadsheet. So let's say you've got 2,000 records on the state spreadsheet and you've got 2,000 records over on the local spreadsheet. That's good. But say you're off by 5 or so, you'll need to be looking to see, well, where are those 5? And just remember that this is running records for students who may have multiple identifications. So, you know, Susie Q may have 5 different records there, and you'll be able to see that by the numbers out beside their particular name. Like 2 is GI, I think. I can't remember. But anyway, getting back to this. So if the records appear on the district but not on the state, so say you've got a record that shows up, you know, in your district, but you don't see it on the state list, that could mean that that record didn't sync to the state. So you could run a manual sync. You'll need to talk to your cases person about that. You want to check to make sure all the records for each student are present. If there are any discrepancies or present, you want to document those because you're going to type that up to go into your Google form later. If possible, attempt to transfer the record that is missing from a prior district. So, like I said before, students with multiple records will appear once for each record. Once you have completed the validation process and correct any errors, you know, if the lists match, then you can go ahead and fill out your GT Records validation report. If the lists are different, you know, utilize the troubleshooting steps that are in the next slide. And if you still got problems, please contact me. I'll be glad to try to help you. So let's talk about some troubleshooting steps. So option 1, if the student appears on your state list but not on your district list and has an end date, verify the student has moved and make a note of this discrepancy on the last response of the Google form. Okay, you're still going to count the child on the list, but you can simply note the difference in numbers is you know, at the bottom. And the note that you would write is that SSID, and you give the SSID number and the little asterisk there, appears on the state list but not on the district list. And the reason is because, right, the student moved out of the district on November 22nd, give the date there, right? So that's why sometimes the list may be different. So you want to be looking at the end date. Then option 2, the student appears on the state list but not on the district list and does not have an end date. All right, this student record may not have been imported, and so they're a missing record. So look at the child's record at Infinite Campus. If he or she doesn't have a GT record for the district, attempt to import the record using the student record transfer data standard. You may have to get with your enrollment person or your cases person to do that. And if you don't know where to send the records request, contact me. I can help you look back at that record. And then option 3, student appears on the district list but not on the state list. Again, for some reason, the student's record may not have synced to the state, and then that's where you need to ask your cases person to manually sync the student's record to the state. And then run the list again to make sure the student is on the list. If the student's not on the list, please let me know, because we may have to do something differently for that student. All right, validation of the GT record report. So after state and local records have been compared and notes have been taken on those students who had end dates to include on the report, and missing student records have been imported and requests sent to the previous district for the copies of identification documentation. They're gifted student record plans and progress reports. So that's when you complete that, when you've done all those different things. All right, let's talk about directions for completing the gifted and talented summative evaluation report. And again, you may want to print out these summative evaluation or any of these reports and complete them by hand before trying to enter that information into the form, because the form will not save it and let you come back. All right, so before you can complete the summative evaluation report, you have to have done the previous steps that I've talked about with these previous reports. So remember, you've got to do the data cleanup and correction process, that's complete, and reports have for validation or records has been submitted, that the annual program evaluation has been completed and documented. And we've talked about what that entails. You want to make sure that you review your district policies and procedures. And wherever you see in the gifted regulation that it says the district must have a policy or procedure, or if it says the district must have a procedure, note that. Go and look, see if you've got a policy for that, see if you've got procedures for that. And if you don't, this is the time to note that. Don't feel like on your summative evaluation that everything has to be perfect. The summative evaluation is your chance to look at how the program is doing, what needs to be improved, and a chance for me to see that so that I can offer any technical assistance that you might need. All right, make sure that all your policies and procedures are available for public inspection. And like I said before, one of the best places is on your district webpage. You want to go back and you want to make sure that all your policies and procedures were implemented correctly. One example being, like regarding screening and identification, which is in sections 3 and 4. Again, just remember the difference between policies and procedures are that policies are broad statements about the vision for the district, whereas your procedures are step-by-step instructions which describe who, when, and what must be done. And a lot of people use the Kentucky School Board Association's policies, and some of those policies also have procedures. One of the ones that I see most often is the grievance and appeal procedure, but then I don't often see procedures for identification and screening, or for collecting parent permission to test for an individual test. So just go through, look through your stuff, make note. This is a good time to take stock. Continuing on here about the summative evaluation. Please make sure that before you complete the summative that you check and make sure services were provided to all your students per KAR Section 7. Ensure GT staff were appropriately hired. Please look at 16 KAR 2:210 for that. The budget was expended according to Section 9, that the GT coordinator was appointed and oversees the program. That's in Section 9. That the GT coordinator is certified according to, I give you the KAR there, Section 7, or they have supervisor of instruction or superintendent certification. And the district knows if GT students overall, and I talked about this earlier, how they progressed in grades 4 through 12. Did they meet? Did they not meet? Or did they exceed district expectations and goals for the gifted program? All right, I'm not ready to get into that quite yet. So just a note here, the summative evaluation has been changed this year. It will be mostly yes and no questions. There'll be a few multiple choice questions, but there are not any narrative questions. So it has changed, and trying to make that a easier lift for you guys. Also, my capacity to read long narratives, I don't have the capacity to do that, and my chance to really talk with you will be during monitoring season if needed, if you need technical assistance, that type of thing. I will be going over at the beginning of the year more about the monitoring process and sharing with you information about that. All right, so before we wrap up, do we have any questions?
Yes, Miss Kathy, there were a few that came in. First, going back to whenever you were talking about the sample teacher, parent, student surveys, there were quite a few people that requested that you could send those to them. So we were wondering if you could just share those once again to your email GT server list.
Okay, I have some samples that I can share with people. If they need those, please send me an email and I'll try to send some samples of those to people. But I don't have, forms for those. Some people use paper pencils, some people use Google survey for that, or some other type of survey.
Okay. And Miss Sue Elise Flowers, she had stated in the chat that she says she was a little late in finishing some identifications this year. Is there a date that those need to be in Infinite Campus in order for the end of the year reporting to be accurate? She said she heard you say that it is July the 1st for school report card, but she was wanting to clarify for the end of the year reporting, since she's not sure if added data updates within 24 hours or if it takes longer.
It seems like it takes, usually lickety split. I've seen people fix things when we're on the phone and I see them within the next minute or so. So, but back to that question, when should identifications be entered? All data correction and information, for it to be on your report, it's got to be done before June the 1st.
Okay, and Missy Turner had asked, will we receive the links in the handbooks/guides for the end of the year reports? She said that the directions are very helpful and clear, and she wants to thank you for all of your work for doing this.
Well, I really appreciate that. Yes, I will. The video will be posted. The slide deck will be posted. All of the Google links will be posted on the GT Resources webpage next week. And also, I will email out all this information to all the GT coordinators and anyone on my GT contact list.
Rhonda Wicker had asked, will we be able to open the end of the year reports this year, work on portions of them, and save them to complete at a later time?
No. No, you need to, as I said before, you need to, I will be sending copies of those for you to look at. You may want to print those out and then record your responses and then go to the Google form and digitally submit that. Google doesn't give you that option.
And Amy Smith is asking if she would like a sample of the parent survey as well. So I don't know if that goes back to what you were saying or if that's just to put out there for anyone who has a sample survey that would send it to her.
Right. So, Amy, I can send you some examples, and if anybody else wants to send Amy some examples of those, y'all reach out to Amy. That's Amy Goins, correct?
Amy Smith.
Amy Smith. My bad. Sorry.
And
All
I
right.
also, the other specific people that were asking for them was Krista Winarski from Breckenridge County, Stacy Perkins from Owen County, Angie Henderson from Kenton County, and Elisa Brown from Bowling Green. But then someone had put in the chat about this would be good for everybody, and we said, oh yes. So
Okay. Well, I will try to, when I send out all that information, also uh, send out some, some samples people can go and look at. And I'll make sure that I check with those people that have those sample forms out there that I can share them. I'm pretty sure that people don't mind to share forms that they've created, but I'll check with them first. Sorry, Hannah, go ahead.
Oh no, I'm sorry. I was just going to say that's all the questions that I have seen
Awesome.
so far.
All right.